The clang of steel echoed through the SEAL team. 3 armory as sunlight poured through the high windows, catching on the oil-stained floors and racks of rifles lined in precise formation. It was 7:30 in the morning, just another Tuesday at Coronado Base. Or it should have been. Commander Grant Mitchell stepped through the doorway, his shadow cutting across the room like a blade. "Hey!" he barked, his voice deep and sharp from years of command. "Get your hands off that weapon." Every head turned. Kneeling beside a Barrett, .50 caliber sniper rifle was a woman in faded gray maintenance coveralls. Her hands, small, deliberate, moved with mechanical precision as she wiped the barrel clean, the cloth gliding in perfect rhythm. She didn't flinch, didn't look up, didn't even pause. "Ma'am," Mitchell growled, "you are not authorized to handle classified sniper systems. Step away from the bench." The woman finally looked up. Her eyes were gray-green, calm but unreadable. "Sir," she said quietly, "I was assigned to perform maintenance on all precision systems in this facility. Work order 774 Alpha." Her tone wasn't defensive, just factual, like someone reading from a manual. Around them, nearly 50 SEALs had stopped what they were doing. Some grinned, others folded their arms, waiting for the spectacle. "She doesn't even have clearance to breathe near that rifle," muttered Sergeant Tank Reynolds, earning a low laugh from the others. Mitchell snatched the clipboard from her hands. His massive fingers made the paperwork look like a napkin. "I don't care what some desk clerk wrote," he said coldly. "Nobody touches our gear unless I say so. Especially not," he glanced at her name tag, E. Cole. Evelyn Cole stood up slowly, all 5'4" of her. "Commander," she said evenly, "this weapon hasn't passed inspection in months. The trigger group modification isn't logged properly, and the barrel's heat signature suggests over 2,000 rounds. If it's deployed like this, your shooters will miss every long-range qualification." The laughter died instantly. For a long moment, all that could be heard was the hum of ventilation and the faint roar of the Pacific beyond the hangars. Master Chief Henry O'Connell, a man with arms like tree trunks and eyes that missed nothing, tilted his head slightly. "How would you know that, Miss Cole?" he asked. Evelyn laid down the bolt carrier group she'd just disassembled. Every piece was arranged in perfect symmetry, because the muzzle brake has been refitted with a non-standard vent alignment. It reduces flash but throws the recoil slightly right. It's subtle, but it's there. Mitchell's jaw tightened. Around him, the room had gone silent. O'Connell stepped closer, studying the rifle. She was right. Every detail. And the way she handled the weapon, the steady rhythm, the precise order wasn't something you learned from a manual. "Commander," the Master Chief said slowly, "maybe we should see what else she knows." Mitchell folded his arms. "You suggesting a test?" A faint smile touched O'Connell's weathered face. "Exactly that." Evelyn's gaze flicked between them. "Sir, that's not necessary. I'm just here to do my job." Tank chuckled. "What's the matter, sweetheart? Afraid you'll scratch the paint?" Something flickered behind Evelyn's eyes, gone as quickly as it appeared. Not anger, something colder, deeper. "Fine," she said softly. "But if I pass your test, I finish my job in peace." Mitchell smirked. "Deal." As O'Connell retrieved a blindfold and an M4A1 carbine from the cabinet, a hush fell over the armory. Nobody expected what was about to happen. The woman they'd dismissed as a cleaner was about to show them what real precision looked like. And in less than 5 minutes, the name Evelyn Cole would be whispered across Coronado Base with a mix of awe, fear, and disbelief. The air in the armory had changed. What had been laughter and easy arrogance just minutes ago was now heavy, electric, thick with anticipation. Master Chief Henry O'Connell placed the M4A1 carbine on the bench with the same reverence priests reserved for sacred relics. He slid a black blindfold beside it. "Standard SEAL qualification," he said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of 20 years of command. "Field strip, clean and reassemble, blindfolded, 15 minutes." Evelyn Cole didn't move. Her expression was unreadable, her eyes drifting from the rifle to Commander Mitchell's expectant face. "And if I finish it?" she asked. "You finish your cleaning shift in peace," Mitchell said, crossing his arms. "But if you fail, I'll make sure you're reassigned to janitorial duty somewhere far from my base." The remark drew a few quiet chuckles from the younger SEALs, but not from the veterans. They had seen too many things in their careers to laugh easily at confidence that calm. Evelyn picked up the blindfold, her fingers light against the fabric. 5 minutes, she said simply. Tank Reynolds snorted. You're kidding, right? But she wasn't. She pulled the blindfold over her eyes with deliberate precision, tying it snugly behind her head. Her breathing steadied slow, controlled, almost meditative. O'Connell's gravelly voice broke the silence. Time starts. Now. The moment the stopwatch clicked, Evelyn's hands came alive. The takedown pins were out in seconds, the upper and lower receivers separating with the soft click of practiced familiarity. Bolt carrier group removed. Charging handle out. Buffer spring, stock assembly, firing pin, cam pin, all lined up with surgical order. There was no fumbling, no hesitation, only rhythm, the quiet symphony of motion. Within 2 minutes, the weapon lay disassembled in perfect order before her, and she began cleaning each part with the same methodical grace that had drawn so much scorn earlier. Every pass of the cloth was deliberate, every motion efficient. A murmur rippled through the room. Lieutenant Ryan Torres checked his watch, disbelief flickering across his young face. 3 minutes. The woman hadn't missed a single movement. Commander Mitchell's jaw clenched. She's probably memorized the manual, he muttered under his breath. But O'Connell shook his head. Manuals don't teach muscle memory, Commander. They teach procedure. What she's doing, he paused, watching her reassemble the buffer assembly by touch alone. That's instinct. Evelyn's hands moved faster now. Each piece fit perfectly into place, the weapon forming itself beneath her fingertips like a puzzle she had solved 1,000 times before. 4 minutes, 19 seconds. She slid the magazine well into alignment, locked the receivers, racked the charging handle once, then placed the weapon on the table with calm finality. Done, she said. The stopwatch beeped. O'Connell picked up the rifle, performing a quick function check trigger response. Safety, bolt action, magazine release. Each motion crisp, flawless. He exhaled through his nose, then looked up slowly. Functionally perfect, cleaner than most of our armory stock. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Tank's grin had vanished. Torres stared openly. The younger SEALs exchanged uneasy glances. Even Mitchell, who rarely allowed surprise to register on his face, looked stunned. Then Evelyn removed her blindfold. Her gray-green eyes met Mitchell's without arrogance, without triumph, only quiet certainty. May I finish my work now, Commander? Mitchell said nothing. O'Connell stepped closer, his voice low. Where'd you learn to handle a rifle like that? I read the manual, Evelyn replied softly. The line drew a few awkward chuckles, but no one believed it. Her movements had carried the unmistakable weight of thousands of repetitions under real pressure, the kind of skill forged by experience, not instructions. Mitchell tried to recover his authority. Neat trick, he said gruffly, but knowing how to take something apart doesn't make you a shooter. Evelyn began wiping down the bolt carrier group again, her tone mild. I never claimed to be a shooter, sir. I just know how to keep things running. The calmness in her voice stung more than defiance ever could. Mitchell felt the eyes of his men on him and hated the quiet implication that he'd been outclassed. And not by a soldier, but by a civilian woman half his size. O'Connell folded his arms. Commander, with your permission, I'd like to try something else. Mitchell hesitated. What did you have in mind? Let's see what she knows about long-range systems. The Master Chief turned back to Evelyn. How familiar are you with the M24 sniper platform? Evelyn's eyes flicked briefly to the weapons rack. Familiar enough. Good. Then show us. She hesitated, not from fear, but from calculation. She knew the moment she touched that rifle, she would reveal too much. Still, there was no other way to quiet the doubts hanging in the room. Evelyn moved to the rack, selecting the M24 with steady hands. The rifle was heavier, balanced, a true precision instrument. She began field stripping it, narrating quietly as she worked. The M24 uses a Remington 700 action, modified to military specifications. Barrel length 24 inches. Chambered in 7.6, 2 NATO. Standard muzzle velocity, 25-50 feet per second with M118 long-range ammunition. Her tone was detached, instructional, like a teacher lecturing on something familiar but distant. Tank frowned. How do you even know that stuff? Because someone taught me well, she said softly. By the time she reassembled the rifle, the room had gone utterly silent again. Even Mitchell, stubborn as ever, couldn't look away. O'Connell spoke first, his gravelly voice low. "That's not hobby knowledge." Evelyn met his gaze. "No, Master Chief, it isn't." And just like that, the balance in the armory shifted. What had started as mockery was now unease, tinged with something new: respect. Mitchell realized, perhaps for the first time in years, that he'd made a mistake. And whatever Evelyn Cole was, she wasn't someone to underestimate again. The morning sun beat down on Coronado's firing range, turning the sand and steel into a mirror of heat. Seagulls wheeled high above the Pacific, their cries fading into the steady crash of waves beyond the dunes. Evelyn Cole stood quietly beside the firing line, the M24 sniper rifle resting across her palms like a relic she'd once sworn never to touch again. Around her, 50 SEALs formed a loose semicircle, some curious, others skeptical. Commander Grant Mitchell crossed his arms, voice cold. 5 shots, 800 meters. You hit at least 4 in the target zone, and maybe I'll start believing this act. Evelyn said nothing. She simply knelt, extended the rifle's bipod, and adjusted it with precise, minimal movements. The M24 sat flush with the concrete, perfect alignment. Every motion was efficient, deliberate, almost reverent. Master Chief O'Connell activated the electronic target system. "Target set at 800 meters, he announced. "Winds light from the southwest, 3 miles an hour." He turned to Evelyn. "You ready, Miss Cole?" Evelyn lay prone, cheek against the stock, her breathing slow and steady. Always, Torres, standing just behind her, found himself unconsciously holding his breath. He'd shot at this distance many times, but even with optics, the target was barely visible, a white dot shimmering in the coastal haze. O'Connell raised a hand. "Shooter ready." "Ready," Evelyn replied. "Commence fire." Her first shot broke with no warning, just the clean, thunderous crack of the rifle. The recoil was sharp but controlled. Through her scope, Evelyn saw the impact. A clean hit, slightly off-center. "Hit, 9.2, O'Connell called out. The crowd shifted, murmuring. Mitchell frowned. Evelyn cycled the bolt, the empty casing tumbling into the sand with a soft metallic ring. The second shot came 30 seconds later, another sharp report. "Hit, 9.7. "Oh." The murmurs grew louder. Tank Reynolds whistled under his breath. 2 for 2. Mitchell ignored him, jaw tight. "She's lucky." The third shot took longer. Evelyn waited for the subtle shift in the wind, a single breath of air from the ocean. She adjusted half a click, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. Crack. 10.0, center hit. This time, nobody spoke. Even the gulls seemed to fall silent. O'Connell lowered his binoculars, voice low with respect. "Perfect shot. End of 2. Mitchell stepped forward. That could be coincidence. Evelyn didn't look up. "Then you'll enjoy what happens next." She chambered the 4th round and fired. The monitor beeped instantly, another perfect 10. A low ripple of disbelief spread through the group. Torres whispered, "That's impossible." "No," O'Connell murmured, "that's mastery." Evelyn paused before the final round. Her breathing slowed even more, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the waves. Then, to everyone's shock, she reached up and twisted the scope off the rifle entirely, setting it gently beside her. "Ma'am," Mitchell said sharply, "what the hell are you doing?" Evelyn's voice was calm. "Optics are for convenience. Let's see how good muscle memory really is." She raised the rifle, aiming only through the iron sights, primitive, unforgiving. Tank's voice dropped. "You can't hit 800 meters with iron sights. Not even SEAL snipers do that." Evelyn didn't respond. She inhaled once, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report rolled across the range like thunder. Seconds later, the target monitor beeped. 10.0. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Mitchell took a step back, eyes fixed on the screen as the digital image displayed 5 hits clustered within a coin-sized circle. She shot that last one with irons," Torres said, voice cracking. O'Connell nodded slowly. "Perfect group, at 800 meters. Nobody clapped, nobody spoke. There was only the soft sound of the surf and the metallic click as Evelyn engaged the rifle's safety. She rose to her feet, her expression unreadable. "Is the test concluded, Commander?" Mitchell opened his mouth, but couldn't find words. His face, usually carved in authority, now looked hollow somewhere between shame and awe. O'Connell finally broke the silence. "In my 20 years," he said quietly, "I've seen maybe 3 shooters in the world do that. 2 of them are buried at Arlington." Evelyn simply began cleaning the rifle again, as if the entire demonstration had been a routine maintenance drill. Her hands moved steadily, her breath calm. Mitchell found his voice at last. "That's not possible for a civilian." Evelyn looked up. "Then perhaps your definitions need an update." The words hit harder than any bullet. Torres stared at her, voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" Evelyn didn't answer. She just smiled faintly, a ghost of something old flickering behind her eyes. Master Chief O'Connell stepped closer. "You've handled these rifles before," he said. "Not in training. In the field." Evelyn hesitated. "Let's just say some lessons leave scars you don't forget." Mitchell glanced at her wrists, the sleek black braces she wore beneath her sleeves. Now, in the sunlight, he saw the faint metal seams, the tiny servo joints that hinted at something beyond ordinary therapy equipment. She caught his gaze and pulled her sleeves down calmly. "Just stabilizers, from an old injury." But O'Connell's eyes narrowed. "No, Miss Cole, those are custom issue, NASA tech, the kind they give to operators who shoot until their bones break." Evelyn said nothing. She packed the rifle, closed the case, and stood. "Permission to return to my station, Commander?" Mitchell hesitated, still processing the impossible. "Granted," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. As Evelyn walked away, the seals parted to let her through. No one mocked her this time. No one even breathed too loudly. When she reached the armory door, she paused, glancing back at the stunned men behind her. "Gentlemen," she said softly, "respect isn't given, it's earned." Then she left, and the room stayed silent long after her footsteps disappeared. The armory had gone quiet long after Evelyn Cole disappeared through the steel doors. The faint hum of the ventilation system was the only sound that dared to move. 50 men stood in silence, each one trying to process what they had just seen. 5 perfect hits at 800 meters, the last one through iron sights. Commander Grant Mitchell leaned over the digital monitor again, as if the numbers might somehow rearrange themselves. They didn't. The results were permanent, an electronic signature of humiliation. He exhaled sharply and looked at his Master Chief. "What the hell did we just witness, Henry?" O'Connell didn't answer right away. He was rolling one of the spent casings between his thick fingers, studying the even burn marks and consistent ejection pattern. "We just saw perfection, Commander. Controlled breathing, 0 recoil drift, exact trigger timing. That wasn't luck, that was training years of it." Mitchell's tone hardened. "She's a maintenance contractor, not a Marine, not a SEAL, not even active duty. None of this makes sense." O'Connell glanced toward the door where Evelyn had exited. "Maybe it doesn't have to if she's not who her file says she is." Mitchell turned sharply. "You think she's lying about her identity?" "I think she's living under one," the Master Chief replied. Mitchell clenched his jaw. "Run her file." O'Connell hesitated. "Commander, you know the level of clearance needed for—" "I said run it." "Oh." Within the hour, both men were seated inside the secure communications center, a windowless room deep in the base's administrative wing. Monitors glowed dimly, casting their faces in ghost blue light. O'Connell's hands moved over the keyboard with the same deliberate focus Evelyn had shown on the rifle. The first results came quickly. A clean civilian record. No criminal history, steady employment, perfect security clearance. Too perfect. "She's been working here 8 months, O'Connell read aloud. Before that, classified maintenance contractor in Arizona. Before that, nothing. No birth certificate, no school records, no military service under that name. Mitchell frowned. "That's impossible. Nobody just appears out of nowhere." O'Connell kept typing, digging deeper through cross-agency databases. Then the system froze for a split second before flashing a red prompt. "A CSES denied. Classification level. Executive order." The Master Chief's hands stopped midair. "That's not standard DoD restriction. That's White House level." Mitchell leaned forward. "Meaning?" "Meaning, whoever she really is, someone wanted her buried." They exchanged a long, tense look. Then O'Connell tried a different route biometric search. He uploaded the base's security footage, isolating a frame of Evelyn's face, feeding it into the encrypted identification system linked to National Archives. The computer processed for several minutes before a new file appeared. The header made both men sit back. Subject: Evelyn Cole. Status: deceased. Kia, Afghanistan, 2016. Mitchell read the line twice, his heartbeat quickening. Killed in action? She's standing in my damn armory. Look at the annotation, O'Connell said quietly. He clicked the expansion tab. Under Unit Assignment, it read, Central Intelligence Agency, Special Activities Center, Ground Branch. Alias: Wraith. Confirmed kills. Furchioshu. Longest recorded sniper engagement, 3,347 meters. The room felt smaller. Mitchell whispered, Jesus Christ, she's the one. The myth? O'Connell's voice was low, reverent even. Angel of Death. The one they said disappeared after Operation Emberfall. Mitchell rubbed a hand over his face. Operation Emberfall, wasn't that the mission that went sideways in Helmand? The one with the black file? O'Connell nodded grimly. Whole team wiped. Classified friendly fire incident, but off-the-record word was, it wasn't friendly fire. Someone sold them out. She was the only survivor. They said she never came back. Mitchell sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. His earlier arrogance now felt like acid burning in his gut. And we just threatened to call security on her. O'Connell gave a dry laugh with no humor in it. You didn't just threaten, Commander. You humiliated her. In front of 50 operators. The truth hit like recoil. Mitchell stood, pacing the small room, trying to steady his breath. We need to report this to base command. Already on it, O'Connell said. He sent the encrypted file up the chain, attaching a priority flag. But you know what's going to happen, right? Mitchell looked over. What? Langley's gonna come a-knocking. And they did. 2 hours later, a black SUV rolled onto the base, its tinted windows reflecting the coastal sunlight. Out stepped Captain William Anderson, the base commander, flanked by 2 plainclothes men, carrying no visible insignia. Their posture screamed intelligence. Anderson's face was carved in stone. Commander Mitchell, Master Chief O'Connell, with me. Inside the conference room, Anderson closed the blinds, activated the jamming device on the table, and turned toward them. Gentlemen, he began, we have a problem. The woman you call Evelyn Cole is not a maintenance contractor. She's a ghost, a level 7 operative who was declared dead 3 years ago. Her existence is classified above your pay grade. Mitchell felt the words hit him like a blow. Sir, why is she here? Who placed her on my base? Anderson looked grim. She requested it, said she needed someplace quiet. Someone up high approved it. CIA wanted her out of the field, thought menial work might keep her stable. Stable? Mitchell echoed. Anderson's expression softened, but only slightly. She watched her entire team die. Survivor's guilt, trauma, psych evals off the charts. She disappeared before her debrief was complete. We assumed she was dead until your little armory incident set off about 6 different alarms in Washington. O'Connell's voice was steady but edged. Sir, she's not dangerous. She's broken maybe, but she's not a threat. Anderson nodded. Not unless someone gives her a reason to be. He placed a thin folder on the table black cover, stamped classified. You'll keep your men quiet. What happened today doesn't leave this room. Understood? Mitchell nodded slowly, the weight of guilt pressing down hard. As the meeting ended, Anderson paused at the door. One more thing, he said quietly. If she ever picks up a rifle again, it won't be for practice. By the time Commander Grant Mitchell left the conference room, the sun had begun to slip behind the Pacific, painting the horizon in streaks of crimson and gold. The day had burned away into the kind of silence that made every sound seem heavier. The air carried the sharp salt of the sea, the same scent that clung to every memory of failure. He didn't know what to say, or what he could possibly say to make it right. But he knew where she'd be. The lighthouse stood on the far end of the base, its weathered white tower watching over the waves like an old soldier too stubborn to die. The gate was supposed to be locked after hours, but when Mitchell reached the bottom of the stairs, the padlock hung open. He climbed the spiral staircase slowly, boots echoing against the iron steps. Halfway up, he saw her. Evelyn Cole sat on the concrete ledge of the observation deck, her back to him, legs crossed at the ankles, the sea wind pulling loose strands of dark hair across her face. She didn't turn around when she heard his footsteps. "Miss Cole," he began, his voice softer than he intended. "May I join you?" She didn't move for a long time. Then she nodded once. Mitchell stepped onto the deck, keeping a respectful distance. The ocean below was endless, vast, dark, and untamed. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. "I owe you an apology." Evelyn's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. "For what? Humiliating me in front of 50 men? Or for digging up a past I've spent 3 years trying to bury?" Mitchell swallowed hard. "For all of it." The wind caught his words and scattered them into the surf below. Evelyn let out a quiet laugh, brittle, humorless. "You didn't do anything I didn't deserve. I came here thinking I could live like a ghost. But ghosts don't stay hidden forever." Mitchell leaned against the railing. "I didn't know who you were. If I had, you'd have treated me differently," she finished. "And that's exactly why I didn't want you to know." Her tone wasn't angry, just tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many memories for too long. Mitchell studied her profile in the fading light, the sharp line of her jaw, the distant emptiness in her eyes. "And what happened to your team, Evelyn?" Her breath caught. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "They died because someone sold us out." Mitchell turned toward her fully, but she didn't meet his eyes. "Operation Emberfall wasn't a failure," she continued. "It was a betrayal. 6 of us went in, only I came out. I thought I was saving the mission. Turns out I was the distraction." Her hands tightened on the railing. "They left us there. I heard the gunfire, the radio calls cut off mid-sentence. I still hear them sometimes in the quiet. You ever try to live with that kind of silence, Commander?" Mitchell didn't answer. He didn't have to. The raw pain in her voice was answer enough. "I tried to die that day too," Evelyn said, her words steady but trembling underneath. "But fate's cruel. It lets the guilty live long enough to regret it." Mitchell took a step closer, careful not to startle her. "You're not guilty, Evelyn. You survived." She gave a bitter smile. "That's the problem, isn't it? Surviving isn't always a blessing." For a while, they stood in silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The first beacon light from the tower above began to spin, sweeping across the water like an eye that never slept. Mitchell spoke again, his tone gentler now. "You said earlier that respect isn't given, it's earned. You earned more than any of us ever could, but you can't keep punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault." Evelyn turned to him then, her eyes glinting with the faint reflection of the rotating beacon. "You think I want punishment? No, Commander. I want peace. But peace doesn't exist for people like me. We're built for chaos, and when the world gets quiet, we start to fall apart." Her words hung in the air, heavy and honest. Mitchell took a slow breath. "The CIA's sending someone for you." "I know," she said. "You don't have to go with them. You've given enough." She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Maybe, but when you've been trained to see the battlefield everywhere, peace starts to look like surrender." "Oh," Mitchell's voice softened. "And what's in surrender that scares you?" Evelyn looked out at the endless ocean, the wind tugging at her sleeve. "Nothing scares me anymore. That's the problem." Below them, the rhythmic thump of helicopter blades began to echo faintly from the base. The sound grew louder, slicing through the stillness. A black shape appeared in the distance, moving fast toward the landing pad. Evelyn stood. "They found me." Mitchell turned to her. "Evelyn." She reached into her pocket and handed him a small sealed envelope, plain, unmarked, but heavy. "If I don't come back," she said quietly, "mail this to the address inside. No one else sees it." Mitchell took it, feeling the weight as if it carried the gravity of her entire past. "What's in it?" "The truth," she said simply. The helicopter's searchlight swept over the tower, bathing them both in harsh white. Evelyn's hair whipped across her face as the rotors roared above. She turned back one last time. "Take care of your men, Commander, and when they ask what happened today, tell them respect is still something worth fighting for." Then she walked down the spiral stairs without another word, leaving Mitchell alone under the spinning beam of the lighthouse, holding a letter that felt heavier than any weapon he'd ever carried. The night after Evelyn's departure, Coronado Base felt hollow. The air hung thick with salt and tension, and the waves outside seemed louder, like the ocean itself was whispering secrets no one wanted to hear. Commander Grant Mitchell hadn't slept. The envelope sat on his desk, its edges worn soft by the constant motion of his fingers. He had turned it over a dozen times, reading nothing but the faint smudge of salt where her thumb had pressed the seal. By midnight, he gave in. He locked the office door, closed the blinds, and opened the envelope. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, handwritten in blue ink, clean, deliberate penmanship. No greeting, no goodbye, only a single line across the top. "If you're reading this, it means they've come for me." Mitchell exhaled slowly and began to read. 3 years ago, Operation Emberfall was designed to eliminate an insurgent cell in Helmand Province. Our intel came from Langley, detailed, precise, and wrong. The target location was a trap. We were sent into a kill box. I was the sniper overwatch. My team's 6 operators moved in on foot. The first explosion hit before they reached the compound. Communications jammed. The air support never came. Mitchell could almost hear her voice in his head as he read calm, factual, stripped of emotion, like every debrief he'd ever filed after a mission gone bad. But underneath the words, something bled through pain. They told the press it was friendly fire. It wasn't. The ambush was orchestrated by someone inside the agency. Our extraction route had been sold. The buyer? A private security firm named Armitage Dynamics Subcontractors, working under CIA black funding. Mitchell stopped, his pulse quickening. He'd heard that name before, whispered in rumor, connected to operations that never made it into official reports. Armitage handled logistics, intelligence analysis, even weapon procurement for field units. In exchange, they got access to missions, to technology, to us. Someone high up signed off on it. Someone powerful enough to make entire teams vanish. Mitchell's hand tightened around the paper. When my team died, they didn't just erase the mission, they erased me. I was declared Kia, burned off every record. They needed a scapegoat and a ghost. I was both. The words blurred for a second before he blinked hard and kept reading. I should have disappeared for good. But guilt has a way of keeping you alive. I spent 2 years tracing the paper trail, the shell companies, the contracts, the fake signatures. Every path led back to one man, Deputy Director Martin Hale. Mitchell's stomach turned. Hale, the name, was a thunderclap in Washington. The man had testified before Congress about transparency and ethics in covert operations. A patriot on camera. But Evelyn's note was clear, sharp as a rifle shot. Hale ran Emberfall through Armitage to cover up illegal arms transfers. My team discovered the shipments weren't going to allies, they were going to insurgents. When we tried to report it, he silenced us. Permanently. Mitchell leaned back, rubbing his temples. It was too detailed, too specific to be fabrication. Evelyn had known dates, coordinates, even call signs. I gathered proof fragments of communication logs, serial numbers, and satellite images. The evidence is encrypted in a data drive, hidden where no one will look, inside the recoil assembly of the M24 I use today. Mitchell's eyes widened. He looked toward the locked weapons cabinet on the far wall. If you're reading this, you'll know what to do. The drive contains everything. Don't trust official channels. Don't trust Langley. Deliver it to the Department of Defense Inspector General. The truth must outlive me. There was a pause, a blank space on the page, then one last paragraph in smaller handwriting. And Grant, if they ask you who I was, don't say my name. Just tell them I used to fix broken things. Sometimes even people, but not myself. Mitchell folded the letter back carefully, as though it might shatter if handled too roughly. For a long time, he just sat there, staring at the paper in silence. Then he stood and crossed the room to the cabinet. The M24 sat inside, gleaming under the dim light. He opened the case and disassembled the stock the way he'd seen Evelyn do, smooth, mechanical, deliberate. When he removed the recoil assembly, something small clinked against the metal table. A flash drive black. No markings, no serial code. He stared at it for several seconds before whispering, "You weren't lying." He slotted the drive into his encrypted terminal. The screen flickered to life with a single folder labeled Emberfall, redacted, truth. He opened it. Hundreds of files appeared: memos, wire transfers, intercepted emails, coordinates. proof of a conspiracy that stretched far beyond the battlefield. One document caught his eye. Authorization memo, Hale, M., dated 2 weeks before the operation. The final line read, "Engagement to proceed under Armitage supervision. Collateral acceptable." Collateral, that was her team. Mitchell's pulse pounded. He understood now why she had run, why she had hidden behind coveralls and maintenance work. A knock on the office door made him jump. He quickly closed the laptop and pocketed the drive. "Commander?" It was Torres, hesitant. "There's something you need to see." Mitchell's voice was steady, but his heart wasn't. "What is it?" Torres hesitated. "The CIA helicopter that picked up Cole, it never reached its destination. Went off radar 15 minutes after leaving base." The words hit like a gut punch. Mitchell turned toward the dark window, the ocean a black void beyond. Somewhere out there, in the cold expanse of night, Evelyn Cole had vanished again, this time for real, or for good. He looked down at the drive in his hand, its small LED blinking faintly like a dying heartbeat. "She gave us the truth," he said quietly. "Now it's our turn to carry it." The morning after Evelyn vanished, Coronado Base woke under a gray sky. The ocean was flat and colorless, and even the gulls seemed to stay away. Something in the air had shifted like the entire base knew a storm was coming, but couldn't say from which direction. Commander Grant Mitchell arrived at the Master Chief's quarters before sunrise. O'Connell was already awake, sitting at his desk with a mug of black coffee and a gaze that had seen too many mornings like this one. Mitchell shut the door behind him and placed the small flash drive on the table. The faint red LED blinked once, as if acknowledging its own danger. "She wasn't lying," Mitchell said quietly. "Everything she wrote, it's all here. Names, contracts, money transfers, Hale, Armitage dynamics. Even timestamps for the ambush." O'Connell stared at the drive, then at him. "You open it on a secured line? Closed system, no connection. Then they'll still find out." Mitchell frowned. "How?" O'Connell leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Because Langley doesn't lose people like Evelyn Cole without putting trackers on the ones who go looking for her." As if on cue, the office phone rang. Once, twice. Mitchell didn't move to answer it. When it stopped, O'Connell's computer beeped a system alert, "Unauthorized access attempt." "Someone's pinging my terminal," O'Connell muttered, his voice turning hard. "They're in our network." Mitchell yanked the drive from the port. "That was fast." "Too fast," O'Connell replied grimly. "They were waiting." Mitchell's jaw tightened. "Then they already know she's gone, and they know what we have." Outside, a pair of black SUVs rolled quietly through the base gate, their tinted windows reflecting the pale dawn light. No insignia, no plates, just government plainclothes precision. O'Connell saw them through the blinds and muttered, "Langley's early today." Mitchell pocketed the drive. "We need to move." "Where?" "Somewhere they can't follow protocol." They left the base through the Southern Service Road, a narrow stretch of asphalt that wound through the dunes and out toward the old airstrip, long abandoned since the 90 seconds. Mitchell drove fast but steady, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. The ocean disappeared behind them, replaced by scrub and sand. By the time they reached the cracked runway, O'Connell was on the secure sat phone, voice low. "I'm calling in a favor," he said. "From who?" "An old friend at the Pentagon, someone who still remembers what integrity feels like." He paused, listening to static. "Yeah, it's Henry. I need an off-grid handoff. No digital trail, no Langley. Yes, it's about Emberfall." He hung up and looked at Mitchell. "We've got 12 hours to get to Edwards Air Force Base. They'll take the evidence there." Mitchell nodded, shifting the truck into gear. "Then we drive." But they hadn't even reached the main road before the first drone appeared, small, silent, gliding like a bird of prey. O'Connell spotted it through the windshield. "Recon unit, MQ-27C. That's CIA." "Jesus," Mitchell floored it. The drone kept pace, shadowing them low against the clouds. Then came the second vehicle, a black SUV appearing in the mirror, closing fast. O'Connell gritted his teeth. "Guess subtleties out the window." Mitchell swung the truck off the road and onto a service trail cutting through the brush. Dust exploded behind them as the SUV followed, its engine growling closer. O'Connell reached under the seat and pulled out an old M9 pistol wrapped in a cloth. "I kept this for nostalgia," he said dryly, loading the magazine. "Didn't think I'd need it for self-defense against my own government." Mitchell didn't look back. "You said once you trained snipers, right?" "Yeah." "Then aim for their tires." M. O'Connell leaned out the window as the SUV drew closer. Two sharp cracks echoed through the desert air. The second round hit, rubber shredded, sparks flew, and the black vehicle veered off the trail, spinning into the sand. The drone, however, remained overhead. A faint hum cut through the wind, then a flash of light. The ground near them erupted in dirt and heat. "They're armed," Mitchell shouted. O'Connell slammed his fist on the dashboard. "Of course they are. It's Langley." He grabbed the radio mic. "Mayday, this is SEAL Team 3 unregistered aircraft firing on U.S. soil, grid 33 Alpha. Static. No response." Mitchell clenched his jaw. "They've jammed communications." The truck roared forward, tearing through brush and sand until the landscape opened into a dry canyon. Mitchell cut the engine behind a ridge, dust clouds settling around them. For a moment, silence. Only the hiss of cooling metal and the distant hum of the drone. O'Connell's breathing was ragged. "We can't keep running blind. They'll track thermal." Mitchell looked out at the open desert. "Then we disappear." He pulled open the glove box and grabbed a small metal canister emergency flare smoke, repurposed as a makeshift jammer. He twisted the cap, tossing it outside. The flare hissed to life, spewing dense white smoke that climbed into the air. The drone's sensors flickered, then drifted off course. O'Connell managed a grin. "Nice trick." "Oh." Mitchell turned to him. "You forget, Chief, I learned from the best." For the first time that morning, a flicker of hope crossed O'Connell's face. But it didn't last. He stared out the window, expression tightening. "They won't stop, you know. Not until they get that drive." Mitchell looked down at the small black rectangle in his hand. It felt heavier than ever, heavier than a rifle, heavier than guilt. "Then we make sure it reaches the right hands. If Evelyn died for this, I'm not letting it die with her." O'Connell nodded slowly. "Then we finish what she started." That night, far above the canyon, a satellite pinged the last known coordinates of the rogue SEAL commander's vehicle. In a dark office in Langley, Deputy Director Martin Hale leaned back in his chair, a glass of bourbon glinting in his hand. "Mitchell," he said softly, almost amused, "you should have stayed in your lane." He nodded to his aide. "Send a recovery team. Bring me the drive and whatever's left of them." The desert stretched endless under the California sun, the air wavering in heat, ripples like a mirage. For hours, Commander Grant Mitchell and Master Chief Henry O'Connell had driven north through the Mojave, following the coordinates given by O'Connell's Pentagon contact. The drive hummed in Mitchell's pocket, its faint light blinking against the dashboard. They'd barely spoken since leaving the canyon. Both men knew too much could be overheard, and both had the same uneasy thought. They were still being watched. By mid-afternoon, the gates of Edwards Air Force Base appeared on the horizon steel fencing, glinting beneath the haze. The American flag whipped in the desert wind, looking strangely weary. "Home stretch," O'Connell said quietly. Mitchell nodded but didn't slow the truck. "You trust this contact?" O'Connell's jaw tensed. "Colonel Rains. We served together in Kandahar. Straight shooter. If anyone can get this to the right people, it's him." "Let's hope he still believes in right people," Mitchell muttered. They cleared the first checkpoint without trouble, IDs scanned, salute given. But as they crossed into the inner perimeter, Mitchell's instincts began to scream. The guards at the next gate weren't Air Force. Their posture was wrong. Their uniforms had no name tags. Langley. O'Connell noticed it too. "Don't reach for anything," he murmured. Mitchell slowed the truck as one of the men, tall, clean-cut sunglasses reflecting the desert, stepped forward. His badge read, "Dode Liaison," but the pistol holstered under his jacket told a different story. "Commander Mitchell?" the man asked pleasantly. "We've been expecting you." Mitchell's grip tightened on the wheel. "Who's we?" The man smiled thinly. "Let's call it a joint operation. Colonel Rains is inside, waiting." O'Connell leaned over. "Where's your base commander?" The man didn't answer. He simply gestured toward a nearby hangar. "This way, gentlemen." Mitchell parked beside a row of nondescript black SUVs, too clean, too uniform. Every instinct screamed trap. As they stepped out, the heat hit like a hammer. Two agents flanked them, silent, watchful. Mitchell met O'Connell's eyes for half a second, enough for both men to understand. Stay alert. Move slow. Trust nothing. Inside the hangar, the light shifted from blinding to dim. Rows of cargo crates lined the space, their stenciled numbers covered with fresh paint. At the far end stood Colonel Rains, or at least the man who looked like him. He hadn't aged a day since Afghanistan, but something in his eyes was different. Harder. "Henry," Rains greeted, voice smooth but cold. "You brought company." O'Connell's face hardened. "You said this was secure." Rains shrugged. "It was until your friend decided to bring Langley's most wanted souvenir." His eyes flicked toward Mitchell. "The drive. Hand it over." Mitchell froze. "You're working for Hale." Rains smiled faintly. "We all work for someone, Commander. Some of us are just more honest about it." O'Connell's hand inched toward his belt. "Rains, you don't know what's on that drive." "Oh, I do," Rains replied. "And that's exactly why I can't let you walk out of here." "Oh." Mitchell's gaze darted toward the hangar door, 2 agents blocking the exit. A third, unseen until now, stepped from behind a crate, rifle raised. The air thickened. "Last chance," Rains said softly. "Give me the drive." Mitchell looked down at his jacket pocket, then back up. "You want it?" He tossed the drive high into the air. For a fraction of a second, every gun turned upward, and that was all he needed. Mitchell slammed his shoulder into Rains, driving him backward into a crate. The flash drive hit the concrete, skittering under a fuel drum. O'Connell's M9 was out before the echo faded one clean shot into the nearest agent's shoulder, another grazing the second's weapon hand. Rains recovered fast, swinging his elbow into Mitchell's ribs, but Mitchell countered with a sharp headbutt. Blood splattered the floor. "Still the same old grunt," Rains spat, clutching his nose. "Still breathing." Mitchell shot back. A burst of gunfire ripped through the hangar. The agents were regrouping, fanning out between the crates. O'Connell grabbed Mitchell's sleeve and pulled him behind a stack of metal drums. "We're outnumbered 3-1, he said through gritted teeth. "Then make every shot count." Mitchell grabbed a fallen rifle, checked the mag, and leaned out long enough to fire 2 quick bursts, clean, precise. One agent dropped, the other ducked behind cover. Rains' voice echoed through the hangar, sharp and furious. "You think you can walk away from this, Mitchell? You're already dead." The report's written, the headline typed. "Rogue SEAL Commander Killed Resisting Arrest." Mitchell's breath came hard, but his voice stayed steady. "Then you'll have to make the story true." The next few seconds were chaos bullets sparking against metal, glass shattering, the smell of oil and gunpowder thick in the air. O'Connell moved like a man half his age, each shot measured, deliberate, but the agents kept coming. Mitchell spotted movement, the flash drive glinting under the fuel drum. He slid low, grabbed it, and shoved it into his vest. "Got it." O'Connell nodded. "Then we need an exit." Mitchell scanned the far wall, an old maintenance door half buried in shadows. "There." They sprinted toward it, covering each other in bursts of fire. Rains shouted something behind them, but his words were lost in the noise. Mitchell kicked the door open and burst into the blinding sunlight beyond. Behind them, the hangar exploded into chaos, shouting, "Gunfire!" the wail of sirens. Mitchell and O'Connell dove into their truck and gunned the engine. The tires screamed against the tarmac as they tore across the runway, dust billowing in their wake. O'Connell glanced back, breathing hard. "They'll chase us." "Let them," Mitchell said, eyes fixed ahead. "We still have the truth." Behind them, black SUVs poured out of the hangar, engines roaring like hounds on the hunt. The desert swallowed them all in waves of dust and heat a deadly chase reborn. And somewhere, far above, another drone shifted its path, locking onto the signal from the drive in Mitchell's vest. The Mojave Desert stretched in every direction, endless miles of cracked earth, broken brush, and heat that shimmered like liquid glass. The truck roared across it, engine groaning, the tires chewing dust. Behind them, 3 black SUVs threw up their own storm of sand, headlights flashing like angry eyes. "Distance," Mitchell shouted over the wind. "Half a mile in closing," O'Connell yelled back, checking the side mirror. His gray hair whipped against the window, but his aim stayed steady, pistol gripped in his lap. "They've got drone support overhead, that's how they're tracking us." Mitchell gritted his teeth. "Then we need to vanish." He veered off the dirt road and onto the open plain, the truck lurching violently as it hit uneven ground. The radio inside crackled faintly, interference cutting through the static. O'Connell leaned forward. "You still have the drive?" Mitchell patted his vest. "Right here. But if we can't get the signal out, it dies with us. Then we make the call." O'Connell reached into the glove box and pulled out a small metal device, a battered old satellite transmitter, the kind built before digital encryption. Analog, harder to jam. Mitchell gave a half smile. "You really don't trust progress, do you? Not when progress works for the wrong people." They hit a rise in the terrain, an old dry lake bed stretching out below. A cluster of derelict communication towers stood in the distance, skeletons of a forgotten military site, Mitchell pointed. "There. If we can patch through one of those towers, maybe we can send the data directly to the Pentagon's secure frequency." O'Connell nodded. "Let's hope the damn thing still has power." As they sped toward the towers, gunfire cracked from behind. Bullets tore through the rear window, glass raining down across the cab. "Hold steady," O'Connell shouted. He leaned out the passenger window and fired 2 quick shots. One SUV swerved, tires shredding. It rolled sideways, metal screeching against rock before bursting into flame. 2 more to go. Mitchell gripped the wheel tighter, jaw clenched. "Remind me to never piss you off, Chief." Too late for that. They reached the base of the towers, rusted frames rising like giant bones against the sky. Mitchell killed the engine, and both men jumped out. The heat hit them instantly, dry and brutal. 3 minutes, O'Connell said, checking the horizon. The 2 remaining SUVs were closing fast, kicking up dust trails like angry comets. "You get that signal out. I'll buy you time." Mitchell hesitated. "You can't hold them off alone." O'Connell gave him a look that stopped argument cold. "You're the one with the drive. That's the mission now. Finish it." Mitchell nodded once. "Copy that." He sprinted toward the nearest tower, boots crunching over brittle ground. The transmitter hummed faintly in his hand, searching for any residual current. He reached a rusted terminal box, tore it open, and started connecting wires, red to ground, black to feed, blue to uplink. The device flickered weakly. "Come on." Behind him, O'Connell took cover behind a wrecked Jeep and fired at the incoming SUVs. The echo of his shots bounced across the desert, deliberate, measured, the sound of an old soldier making every bullet count. "Transmission ready," the device chirped. Mitchell slammed the drive into its port and opened the data file Evelyn had left. He keyed the frequency O'Connell had given him, Pentagon Secure Channel Omega Line. The screen blinked, connecting. Gunfire exploded behind him. One SUV had stopped short, agents spilling out with rifles blazing. Dust rose in thick clouds. O'Connell returned fire, hitting 2 before ducking down, bullets sparking off the metal Jeep. Mitchell crouched lower, shielding the transmitter. The progress bar crawled forward painfully slow. 38%, 52%, 71%. "Chief," Mitchell shouted. "Almost there." "Make it count," O'Connell yelled back, reloading. He popped up to fire again, and a round caught him in the shoulder. The impact spun him sideways, slamming him against the Jeep. He grunted but stayed upright, firing one-handed. "Henry," Mitchell called. "Keep going." O'Connell's voice was hoarse but steady. "Don't you stop." Mitchell's hands shook as he watched the numbers climb. 91%. 96%. Then the screen flashed red. Signal interference detected. He cursed under his breath and adjusted the transmitter's dish manually, twisting it toward the horizon. The bars steadied. The percentage climbed 97, 98, 99. Transmission complete. Mitchell exhaled hard, heart pounding. "It's out. She did it. Evelyn, you did it." He yanked the drive from the port and pocketed it. When he turned back toward O'Connell, the old man was slumped against the Jeep, blood dark against his uniform. The SUVs were still approaching, but slower, now cautious. Mitchell ran to him, crouching beside his friend. "Chief, we're done. It's sent." O'Connell's breathing was ragged. "Good, good." Then it wasn't for nothing. Mitchell pressed his hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "You're not dying out here, old man. I won't let you." "Oh." O'Connell's eyes flicked open, a faint grin tugging at his mouth. "Don't argue, Commander. You still owe me a drink." Mitchell looked up at the horizon, new shapes moving against the Sunday drones. Not CIA this time. Air Force markings. reinforcements drawn by the emergency ping embedded in the transmission. He squeezed O'Connell's shoulder. "You hang on, help's coming." O'Connell tried to speak, but his voice faded into the wind. Mitchell caught only the last word, "Evelyn." Then the light left his eyes. Mitchell sat there for a long moment, the desert wind tearing through the silence. When the first Air Force convoy arrived, they found the remains of 2 burning SUVs, a wounded SEAL commander holding a drive against his chest, and the flag patch from O'Connell's sleeve clutched in his other hand. The transmission had reached Washington. The files were already spreading. Operation Emberfall was no longer a secret. 3 weeks later, Washington, D.C. The headlines came quietly, not breaking news, but whispers that spread through the corridors of power like a slow leak of poison. CIA contractor under investigation for illegal arms transfers. Deputy Director Martin Hale resigns amid scandal. Whistleblower files suggest cover, up in Afghan operation. But the public would never hear the name Evelyn Cole. She remained a ghost, buried under redactions and classified memos. Only a handful of people in the Pentagon knew that the woman once called Wraith had set the truth free and that 2 men had nearly died to make sure it reached daylight. Commander Grant Mitchell sat alone in a dim hospital room at Walter Reed. His left arm was in a sling, ribs wrapped tight, eyes fixed on the small metal flash drive sitting on the bedside table now empty, its secrets delivered. A knock sounded at the door. The man who entered wore a dark suit, no badge, no introduction. CIA written all over him. "Commander Mitchell," the man said softly, closing the door behind him. "Quite a mess you made." Mitchell didn't answer. The agent smiled faintly. "Don't worry, you won't be charged. Officially, Operation Emberfall never existed. Unofficially, well, let's just say certain people owe you." He paused, studying Mitchell's face. "There's something else you should know. The helicopter that picked up Cole, it was found, crashed in the Gulf, pilot dead, but no trace of her." Mitchell's eyes lifted. "No trace? Not a body, not a signal, nothing." The man adjusted his tie. "Langley assumes she drowned. Personally, I think she's smarter than that." He placed a sealed envelope on the table plain, unmarked. "This arrived through diplomatic channels. No return address. Thought you'd want to see it." When the agent left, Mitchell stared at the envelope for a long time before tearing it open. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, slightly faded, edges worn. It showed a quiet market somewhere overseas. Morocco, maybe, or Turkey. In the background, sunlight fell across a small cafe by the sea. And sitting there, half turned toward the camera, was a woman in a gray headscarf, sipping coffee. Her face was mostly hidden, but those gray-green eyes were unmistakable. On the back of the photo, a single line written in blue ink, "Respect isn't given, it's remembered." Mitchell smiled, a slow exhale leaving his lungs for what felt like the first time in weeks. He folded the photo carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket beside O'Connell's flag patch. Outside the window, rain began to fall against the glass, soft, rhythmic, like distant gunfire fading into memory. He looked out at the storm and whispered, "Welcome back, Wraith." That night, halfway across the world, in a safe house overlooking the lights of Tangier, a woman sat at a wooden table assembling the pieces of a disassembled rifle. Her movements were steady, deliberate, but her expression was calm. On the table beside her lay a new passport, a black phone, and a sealed envelope addressed to Grant Mitchell, Coronado. The phone buzzed once. A voice on the other end spoke in low tones. "We need you again, Cole. Something's moving in Eastern Europe. It's happening all over." Evelyn's hands paused mid-motion. She looked toward the open window, the sea wind stirring her hair. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, almost to herself, "Ghosts don't die. They just change missions." She assembled the final piece of the rifle, clicked the safety into place, and looked out at the dark horizon, eyes calm, unflinching, and ready.